welcome to the amazing Feeding Our Young podcast. Have you ever heard the phrase, nurses eat their young? Ew, that's really disgusting. Feeding Our Young is more than a podcast, it's a movement. It's a desire to see new nurses of all ages, especially us old ones, be supported and uplifted by their peers, and it starts with me, an old nurse. It starts with you, so join the amazing host, Eric Miller, registered nurse of nearly 20 years, which means he is also getting old, an adjunct clinical instructor, and today's honored guest, me, Katrina Nebel, and be ready to have your life uplifted so you can in turn uplift others, especially those of us that are getting older. We need that uplifting. So welcome to the Feeding Our Young podcast.
Oh my goodness. Welcome back to the flip side, part B experience of the Katrina Nebel episode here. Katrina, thank you for the fun intro. If you all skip through that second intro, a lot of times that's kind of the tradition here on this podcast. If we have a second intro, we just allow our honored guests to have fun with it, to do whatever they want. And so some people do it, some people don't. She did it. Go listen to it if you happen to skip through it. But enough about that. Oh, Katrina. We have not yet even scratched the surface on your nursing, new nursing career, nursing school, all the things. We kind of just talked about the fact that, and if you haven't listened to episode 1, go back and listen. We talked about Katrina's whole first career, her first professional life, and touched on subjects that are very common to us, meaning, not being able to hold just one job, and then a lot of squirreling and rabbit trailing about man crushes and so many other things. So if you missed it, go back. You don't want to miss it. Now we get into the meat of the matter. But before we get into the meat of the matter, we're going to have a little appetizer first. So let's do some soft lob questions, Katrina, because we want to know a little bit more about you. What kind of hobbies do you have?
So I love pretty much anything outdoors. Much like you, I love running. That's one of my passions. Because of some various things, my running is not nearly what it used to be, but I have a little pride that I have done I'll say several marathons, one of those being the Boston. So running is definitely a passion that I have. I also love hiking, paddleboarding, skiing, pretty much anything out. And then reading. That's one of the things I'm enjoying being out of school is I'm reading books that have nothing to do with school. So
okay, I can't let that go. You did the Boston Marathon.
I did.
What the heck was that like?
So I want to complain about the year I did it because it was so hot. They actually almost canceled it because of record heat. But the next year was the bombing. So I actually am like, you know what? My year wasn't that bad.
No.
It's really amazing. The whole community comes out. I'd never been to Boston before. A really cool city. I would highly recommend if people have not been to Boston to go. It was not what I envisioned. It was super cold, but yeah, it was hot. I do not do well in the heat. I'm that person that will get up at 3 a.m. and run in the morning to avoid the heat. And so it was not great time. I have to share a really funny story because again, I'm really good at getting off topic, but they take a bus. You take a bus that takes you to the start. And this bus that we're on ended up getting lost. And if anybody's done racing, there's usually like the pre-race, you got to pee. And so there's like
there's a whole routine.
And this is quite a drive anyhow out. And we're just dying. We're like at this point, seriously, just pull off the road. We just want to pee. Like, we don't even care at this point. We finally get there and all of us go, because there's like so many porta potties, not enough for this full bus of people. All of us go like running off into the woods and did not realize that there was thorns. And so I come out, my legs are scratched up. It was fantastic. Yeah, it was just it was a funny thing. My sister ended up coming out with me, and so we hung out and did that. And it was super awesome, but yeah, hot, but amazing experience. I'm really hoping at some point I can do it one more time.
So I mean, there it is, everybody. There's a little behind the scenes that the year before the bombing at the Boston Marathon, there is a busload of runners who had scratched up legs running the
Yes.
marathon, which is not fun to do when you have legs that aren't
Yes.
scratched and itching and all that. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. I had to ask because, I mean, I'm the half
Yes.
marathon guy. I love doing half marathons, and but they, a lot of the ones I run, they'll be like, well, this is their marathon equivalent is a Boston Marathon qualifier. Just, I mean, there's this mystique about it because you have to qualify to get in, and even then, isn't it like a lotto? You have to didn't they have to
Yes. Yeah, you have to
yeah,
qualify, then there's still a lot of, there
there's
is
still
a
a
way
lotto.
which, now that I'm getting older, I might have to go. You can also run it through a charity. They do have spots set aside for charity, but I'm still determined that I can get my running back to run
Yeah,
it one more time. But I'm with you.
yeah.
I actually love half marathons is my happy distance.
Mm-hmm.
Marathons, some people are built for them. I don't feel like I am. I feel so beat up afterwards that that's why I haven't done that many of them because
Yeah.
it's time. It's like a lot of time to
It's a lot
commit.
of time, yeah,
Yes.
to
I'm not
train
like,
for this. Yes.
yeah. Yes.
Uh, well, all right. So someone has fast forwarded through this because they're like, okay, I don't want to hear about running, and they like running, and no, 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 no. And now, welcome. You've reached the
Yes.
not running portion of our. But let's talk one last thing about you before we dive into nursing, and that is traveling. Have you done any traveling before?
Not a ton as an adult, I'll say. Like my sister lives in Alaska, so I've been up to see her a couple times. Actually, did a really cool trail run up there. That's all I'm going to say
Mhm.
about running. And then family, we went to Hawaii. As a kid, I went to Australia because my mom's side of the family lives there, which was really cool. But I was like 12, so that's about the extent. But I'm trying, even with all my jobs and stuff, I'm saying like now that I'm out of school, I'm going to like have a little fun. So just planning a few little small trips around the country. But next year is my husband's my 25th anniversary. So I have told him that we are going to Europe. Like, this is what we're doing because I've never been to Europe, which is kind of crazy because my dad was from Austria.
Yeah.
My oldest daughter got to go for her senior graduation present. And now my youngest one, like, both of my kids are going to go to Europe before me. So Europe is happening next summer.
Yes. Oh, that
Yes.
is so cool. It is on our bucket list as well. We are just a couple years past our 25th anniversry, and
Yes.
man, we definitely want to go. So that'll be amazing. I guess we're gonna have to
Yes.
have you back on. You're gonna have to tell us all about it.
I would love to.
So what everybody's been waiting for. Let's talk nursing. Is this a podcast about nursing? I think it is. Let's make sure it is here now,
Oh,
everybody.
yeah.
So let's start with the most obvious question then, Katrina. You've already established yourself in this one career, and you've kind of hinted towards the why, but why nursing? Why did you end up going that direction?
I just felt that I love the exercise world, but I kind of felt like I'd hit my barrier as far as feeling like I'm impacting people. And COVID was a big shift for me. Things got kind of interesting. We live in Washington State. There were definitely some restrictions that people didn't love, and people were getting so upset about those types of things when it came to like going to the gym. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, it felt so petty to me because I had friends who were nurses and they're telling me their experiences. And I'm like, these people are getting upset over this when people are seriously sick and some are dying. And I felt like I wasn't doing everything I could do.
Hmm.
And so I started to get pulled in that direction. I mentioned a little bit about the cardiac rehab that those nurses also inspired me to want to do more. So that's when I kind of shifted. And um, I mentioned a little bit about my first degree. When I was in school for my first degree, because it's in exercise science, a lot of the same prereqs. So I actually was with nursing students for my first 2 years. I remember being in awe of
Mm.
them. That was not
Hmm.
something that I was like, it wasn't really the path I was thinking of going at that time. But I also like put them up on this pedestal of like, they can be nursed. Like, that's just amazing to me. That's not something I could do. I didn't feel like I had that in me. My husband, I've had this conversation because he's like, why didn't you do it back then? I'm like, I didn't think I was like, I could. And at this
Hmm.
point, I'm like, yeah, I feel like I can be a nurse now. I feel like I'm at that place in life where I have the confidence in myself
Yeah.
and the maturity to be able to handle nursing because there's a lot that goes into it that it can be rough. I mean, even just this little bit that I've had from nursing school to I'm not quite at 3 months working in the hospital. It's a lot emotionally too. So I don't think I would have done well when I was younger. And I'm in awe of these, I want to say kids because some of them could be my kids
Right.
that are
Right.
they're adults, but they're young. And I think like that takes a lot. I didn't have that kind of emotional maturity that I could have seen the things I see to be able to not get burned out. Like if I'd started in my 20s, I would have been burnt out by now. So,
Interesting. Interesting. And I like there's something to be said for it being the right time, right? Yeah.
yeah.
No, I want people to hear what you just said. You know what I mean? Like going through that first time with your first degree and sharing those classes with nursing students and the words you use, putting them on a pedestal and kind of like looking at them like, oh my gosh, like they can be nurses. I want to highlight that only because fast forward X number of years, fast forward X number, it doesn't even have to be a long period of time. You know what I mean? If you're a nurse during COVID, I always joke that it's dog years, right? Every year that anyone was a nurse during COVID, each year was like about 4 to 7 years of cynicism and experience as well. But all of that to say, you fast forward to this point in time, and a lot of nurses are like, man, I cannot wait to retire. I can't deal with people anymore. I'm tired of it. And that's part of what I think I'm trying to fight here too with this podcast. Because I mean, I'd felt that myself. This is not you know what I mean? You guys need to be like me. That's not the case. We all get there. And the fact that like you were originally, you think about going back to those first steps and you're like, wow, you know what I mean? They get to be nurses. It is still a prestigious career. It is still a career that is honorable. You're serving people, you're taking care of people in their best and worst moments. And that cannot be lost in the midst of years of cynical, like, policies, politics, patients, fighting you and all the things. Don't lose sight of the fact that we are in still the best profession in all the world. Okay, enough of my own little speech there. um, but that being said, so you talked about how going to school the first time didn't really have a lot of support from the parents, did from the spouse, and you know what I mean, not quite the support you would hope for. Going the second time to go into nursing school and that sort of thing, obviously a bit older and life has changed quite a bit for everybody. Did you have that same feeling? Did you feel like you actually had more support? What did that feel like going back for a second degree?
I mean, I mean, one of the ones I will say, my girls were like, oh, when I told them, I was like, I'm gonna apply to, my husband and I talked about it some. I was very fortunate because my degree I mentioned overlapped a lot. And when I started looking to get into school and finding out what I need, and they're like, oh, you should probably retake like organic chem and all this stuff. And I was like, dude, no. I said, I have actually been actively using my degree. If I can pass the TEAS test, I'm not retaking any of those.
Yeah.
I had to take one class, but as I was kind of going through this process, and they're watching me study, I had to do one developmental psychology class. I That was the only one I had to do as my prereq that didn't wasn't covered in my first degree, but it was just I don't know. I think that they told me how proud they were of me. So that
Yeah.
alone, like knowing as a parent, I'm a role model. I had people that taken classes from me. They've become my since I have no relationship with my parents. They became my family, so they were all
Hmm.
spurring me on, knowing I was going to be pursuing that. So that was awesome. I love my husband, but we actually like he had a hard time with it.
Interesting.
I think because I had a full time job. I
Hmm.
had a full time job, and that's part of our income. And so I'm talking about like leaving a full time job when my oldest, she actually was, when I started, she was at the end of her senior year of high school. So he's like,
Hmm.
I'm going to have two people in college at the same time, one who's not, helping to support. It was a lot. I also believe, and I don't know if you experience this, but I feel like guys kind of go through a little midlife crisis as their kids get older and they don't need them as much. And then they start to go, oh, so he was watching his kids who are both pretty independent
Hmm.
kind of do their own thing. And then his wife kind of take on this career. He's always been the main breadwinner. Like I've
Yeah.
worked, but he's always made more money than me. And so it was like, oh, now she's like getting this job where technically she might not need me. So he actually had a hard time emotionally with that. And also
Mm.
just thinking finances and those types of factors that come in when you decide to just suddenly go to school. So
Yeah.
it was hard for him, I will say. And we've worked through all these things over the course of my schooling, but he wasn't super supportive. And it actually made, and I've told him this, he made it really hard for me the first couple semesters. And then I think it
Hmm.
was enough of his friends saying, hey, your wife's going to be a nurse? Like, why are you fighting this? Like,
Yeah,
figure it
dude, this is great.
out. Yeah, they're like, no, this is a good thing. Like and that was my thing. I'm like, this is a guaranteed job. And I need this for myself to have this fulfilling career. So it was a little hard. I won't say it was the same as when I was younger, just because I feel like the maturity. I
Yeah.
went into it and I was like, I'm doing this. And as previous guests have mentioned, it's really hard. The nursing school is hard. And
Yeah.
but there was definitely some moments. I had a few things, happen during school that made it more challenging. But I think the hardest part was just the whole different technology. And like that was one of the things I had to convince my husband, like, I need a new laptop. Like the one I have that I don't even know how old it was. I was like, this is not going to work. I don't think you understand what it looks like. And I think we were watching some show one time and these kids all sit down and open up their laptops. I'm like, that's what school is now. Like
Yep.
nobody's bringing a book to school. Like I have to look at the laptop. So that way of learning was different for me,
Hmm.
because back, before dinosaurs were around, when I went to school the first time, it was all books, and
Yep.
we did scantrons and those types of things. So that, and I'm okay with technology, but I don't like, I had to actually handwrite all my notes out, which I remember I felt really like ancient doing that. And I'm one of the writing professors. I was talking with him about that. I'm like, this takes more time. And he's like, but if that's how you remember things, it's okay. So
Hmm.
I had to figure out what worked for me in that setting.
Had to adapt to what the current setting is what you're saying.
Yes, yeah, yeah. And I just think anytime something's new, like I mentioned, I'm like when I'm doing my classes and things like that, like I'm in control. So
Hmm.
I can be confident. But walking into a classroom, knowing that I'm not the oldest that was in my group, I was the second oldest. Like to me, that was intimidating. I'm like, I'm gonna be in this with 20-year-olds. And
Yeah.
how's that gonna feel? And I like that first day I said, okay, you're gonna introduce yourself to somebody. And to me, that was like huge because I am not the person who walks into a room and just like, hey, that's my husband. Like we're like the opposite of you and your wife. I am
Yeah.
not. I'm that person who's like looking for that one safe person to talk to. And so that's what I did. I was like, and I came home, my kids will even say, they're like, I was like, you guys, I've talked to somebody the first day of class. I talked to somebody because I didn't know anybody. A lot of the students, because like I said, I didn't do any of the prereqs. So some of them had done it through the community college. Others had come through Whitworth or WSU, that route. So
Hmm.
I didn't know anybody when I walked in that room,
Mm.
and that's like one of my biggest fears is just having to walk into a room and not know people. So so besides the learning, it was like, okay, I'm gonna like put myself out there and just start conversations and yeah,
And
be
make it
vulnerable.
happen. Oh,
Yes. Yeah.
that's absolutely incredible. And you know what I mean. I love that I have like 4 or 5 competing things that want to get out of my mouth at the same time. Let's work in reverse order. Like, first of all, you're talking about, I just love the fact that your first goal is like, I am going to talk to somebody. It's not even phrased as like, I'm going to make a friend. It's, I'm going to talk to somebody. I need to introduce myself to somebody. I need to know, reaching out. And I don't know how many times we've said on this podcast, you cannot do this as an island unto yourself. I think a few people absolutely probably could make it work miraculously somehow. But even when you do, then unless you're going into an area of nursing that does not require you to be social, you know what I mean? You're not setting yourself up for success. This is a team sport, very much so, and it's one of the themes that keeps coming out of the podcast. Every honored guest is like, what's one of your favorite things in nursing school? I love the people I met. I love the people that I suffered with. I love the people that, and fill in the blank. You've got to reach out. And just like that, Katrina is your poster child for, well, what if I'm not that person? What if I don't do that? You know what I mean? Like, what if that's not my inclination? Guess what? It wasn't hers either. And she's like, hi, my name's Katrina. And I'm assuming that paid dividends down the road, but we're going to talk about that here in a second. I'm going to dial it back a little bit further too. I just love the fact that you use the word scantrons. I know that some people in this audience are probably going to be like, what are you talking about? You guys, Scantron, like they even still had Scantrons when I went to nursing school. And I was 30 when I got my first, my degree. And they had Scantrons where you had to like fill in these bubbles and you ran it through a machine and you could hit, anyway, and then it would grade it. And it was, well before, it existed, it predated all the technology and all that, but it also kind of existed alongside it. I think it took a while for those to totally drop off. NCLEX used to be Scantron. Even before that, we've talked to Honored Guest, NCLEX used to be handwritten. Enjoy that thought there. But anyway, so yeah, Scantrons, yay. And then dialing it all the way back to that whole, do men have midlife crises? Oh, 100%. You know what I mean? Like, I can definitely vouch for your husband on that one. For me, it started early when, like, the first time I noticed it was when the kids no longer wanted to play family games so much. I'm a big, I love that, and I loved interacting with the family that way. And then after a while, it was like, no, I want to do my own thing. And you're like, excuse me, I'm sorry, what? Your own thing? Like with other people? What are you talking about? Like, this is the family first. Anyway, it's a hard adjustment. It really is. And it's ego does get in the way. Whether or not you are the most humble person of all time, I don't care who you are, you still got a little bit of ego down in there. And like you said, you know what I mean? Like seeing the missus go off to become a nurse, like I can see how that would further complicate that whole process. So yeah, midlife crisis, very real thing. I would hope that it doesn't, those don't use it as a license to go off and cheat on your spouse and get a brand new car and all the things. But it's called a midlife crisis for a reason. Men and women, women have menopause, and I guess men just have menopause. I don't know. Like it's a thing. It's a thing. So let's pull it back around. Let's talk about nursing school. So you've decided to do nursing school. You've introduced yourself to somebody. That was the first box checked off on the list of things to do. How was nursing school for you, being an older student? Coming back to this, let me back up just 1 second. At any point, did you have any doubts? Like, were there any voices in your head that are like, ooh, do I still got it? Can I do this?
I'm going to say not really. I've
Awesome.
always been a good student. And like when I tell my kids, I was like, it sounds kind of weird, but I feel like I'm fairly intelligent. And so I've gotten through like high school and my other college. Like I was an honor student. I did all this, I was able to do that. And I knew that I would be okay. I understood from friends who had been through nursing school, like kind of the challenges. So again, like I was like, bring it on. I know I can do this. I'm not going to say it's going to be easy, but I felt like I would be okay. So
Yeah.
I
Awesome.
think I think it's the unknowns. I think the biggest thing that bothered me, because I do tend to hack my life, was not having schedules. There's nothing that bothered me more
Mm.
than like the semester is getting ready to start and you're like, I still don't have my clinicals. I don't know what those dates are. And it's like, I have, besides the jobs, I'm like, I have kids, they're in sports. I want to be able to see them. I need to figure out, I was lucky because my oldest daughter was already driving and those types, but I still needed to figure things out. And I was like, just give me
Mm-hmm.
a schedule. That was probably the
Yeah.
thing that bothered me the most of all of nursing school, was not having a set schedule until like you start. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, by the way. So
Yeah. Because then on the flip side, they're trying to put it all together themselves, and you got to work with the state, and you got to work with placements and clinicals, and it is insane. Like, you don't know this going through nursing school, y'all, until you're on the other side of it, and you're like, oh, there's this whole grid. Oh, there's this whole, like, citywide grid that they're trying to place students in, and statewide grid, you know what I mean, for practicum students. We got practicum students from Eastern Washington going to Seattle to do their practicum. And so it's like you're trying to organize. It's like herding cats, I think. I don't know. But so then, Katrina, what did you like about nursing school going through it?
I love learning. I feel like even before going to nursing school, I'm a lifelong learner. I love that. So just every time you'd hear something and it just kind of it clicked, and it's like, oh, this is how the systems work together. And like I said, with my exercise science background, I have a lot of knowledge about the body, but seeing it on a deeper level was just, I love that. Even though there's days when you just want to like not get up and go to class, or you're tired or take a test, but just that learning factor of when you get it was amazing. And then the clinicals, I felt like that's where I was because even though I'm an introvert, I really enjoy connecting with people. And so that was the part I loved. I mean, everywhere from at WSU, the first ones are long-term care or at the vet's home. And I loved chatting with those residents and learning about them. And all the way through, I loved making that connection. And like I said, as an older person going in, I was like, bring it on. Like I had no problem walking into the room and just seeing, and that's where some of there was always jokes. And I think I was always the oldest one in my clinical groups. And they're like, oh, Katrina's going to be fine. She'll just talk to that person. Like, no big deal. That was my confidence. Like, even if I didn't have the skills for whatever was happening, I was like, I can talk to this person. I can make them feel comfortable. I have that. Before I went to nursing, I was actually thinking of going into as a therapist, because people tell me stuff for just like random things. I'm like, wow, you just unloaded a lot. So people tend to feel comfortable with me. So I knew I had that side. I'm like, if I can just talk to the person, we'll figure out all the skills. Like those will come.
Was there, and maybe I'm making more out of this than I need to, but was there kind of a symbiotic relationship then? Like where you being typically the oldest clinical student, you know what I mean, in your group, or were there things that you could give and take to one another? Was there a nice cohesion when it comes from like, hey, I'm good at this, but you're good at that. Help me, like whatever. Like, was there a tangible expression of that?
And a lot of times we would meet as a group, but we'd kind of go off in our things. I will say though, that first day, and it's I only hang out with a couple people from school, just because I already had my own friend base before I went to school. But I will say, she was a CNA, somebody in her 20s, and we were paired together first day, and we go, and when the nurse is like, hey, we'll just say Bob, I don't even know the guy's name, like he needs help in the bathroom, and I'm like, okay, like everybody go to the bathroom, like I don't know what this looks like. Her being a CNA, she walks in and she just owned it. And this is somebody who like appeared kind of quiet, and I was like, that was amazing. Like you just like, you're a 20-year-old, you taught me something. Like I just watched you help this person. So I feel like everybody had their own skill set that they brought to it. And I don't like that I was like, you seem so quiet. And then you walked in and you just like did your thing. And I thought that was so cool. I have to say, CNAs to this day, I still learn so much from them, because they can put briefs on like none other. They can shift people in bed. So they're my heroes in many, many ways. But so I'll say yes. I mean, there was definitely times, just in school in general, it's funny because some of them were talking about like applying for jobs. And then I go into like my mom mode where I'm like, oh, like, what's your resume look like and your cover letter? And they're like, cover letter. And I was like, oh,
what are you talking about?
Like, we need to, I know, like, let's talk about it. So there were definitely moments where they would ask for my advice, and I was okay with it. I was like, you know what?
Yeah.
Like, I'm happy to be that person, just because I do I'm 20 years older than most of them. So
yes.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna springboard off of that, because this is exactly what I'm like. You just said, I learned something from her that day, And, almost in the context, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but almost in the context of like, you maybe weren't necessarily expecting that, or whatever the case may be, not to a negative effect, but like, and that's why any older nurses out there, anyone who's more senior, tenured, you know what I mean? Like, who's been at it even a decade or whatever, even 5 years, I'm going to tell you right now, like, always stay open, always learn. We always, right, like, as nurses, we always do. But that includes, like, I always tell people, like, I love teaching students. Not everybody does. That's great. Somebody has a student on their shift that day. That can be a burden. It legit can. I get that. That being said, yes, you are going to teach them how you do things. Yes, they're going to see how you model care. They're going to see how you do that. But stay open to learning from them, because that's what I love about the formal teaching of my students, is that I don't care if I'm teaching 20-something-year-olds. I don't care if I'm teaching people who are older than me. Like, I've done both of that. And yet I'm always like, how do I be a better version of me? What can I do better? And oh, okay, this was a misstep. Maybe I don't talk to this person this way. Oh my gosh, I love how that person... There was one, like, just this last week. We have what's called oral care plans, and our students, like, I've walked through this, I think 2, 4, maybe 5 semesters now, oral care plans with students, and it's watching young minds. We're trying to formulate their mind into becoming a nurse, right? And thinking critically on the job as you're doing the thing. And I just had in one clinical conference, one of my students, she had this intervention, and I don't remember it well enough to phrase it the way I need to do it justice. But the way she had written this particular intervention, it wasn't pertaining to a problem that was particularly brand new. This is a problem we've seen on other patients and stuff like that. But the way her mind worked and the way she focused on this one problem, and it had to do with something, the intervention was something about being deliberate in talking to the patient and getting to know them as a person, not just the education and this, that, and the way she phrased it was so good. I just was like, I literally was in conference and I told her when she was done presenting, I said, congratulations. Like, it takes a lot to surprise me. And that surprised me. Like, this was something that I'm like, I really like that. Like, this is something we need to use moving forward. And just be open to learn. So thank you for like sharing that kind of perspective there, Katrina. So was there anything else that you loved about school that you wanted to talk about before we dive into, say, the challenges of nursing school?
See, just overall, like, I'll be honest, like that story, but also I I don't want to say stigma, it's not the right word, but
Mm-hmm.
knowing that I was going to be with younger people, I was not as open-minded about what they could bring to the table. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that once I was like, who cares if you're old? You can still learn from everybody. Um, I loved because nobody really likes group work, but
Mm-hmm.
you learn a lot. You get those different perspectives. And so that I actually enjoyed. I enjoyed getting to know my peers. And because
Mm-hmm.
they all brought something different to the table, they all had different stories. We had some amazing people. Like I've heard some other guests that had babies during school. We had some of those. We had pregnant. We had people who had really hard challenges that brought them there.
Yeah.
And I just loved learning about that and seeing what helped them overcome those. And I just thought that's amazing. We had people who failed one semester and had to come up, and it's just hearing their vulnerability and their honesty and how you can, if you fail a semester, some people just are done. And
Yeah.
just their drive and I mean, hats off to them because I don't know if I would have been like, I'm gonna wait and then jump back in on another. I don't know if I would have had that in me. So I have the utmost respect for those who are like, nope, this is just one little bump in the road. I'm gonna keep going. So just hearing everybody's stories, I think to me that was probably my favorite part of nursing school besides the learning side of it.
I appreciate that. And you bring to mind, I'll shout out Yasmin, known as Yaz. Go back, listen to her episode. She talks about failing a quarter of community college and then going in, and that process of going in with a whole new group of people, feeling like a failure. You know what I mean? All the things. Like,
Yeah.
it really just compounds the difficulty that already exists. And so, yes, I am most impressed by anyone who is able to do that, because it is easy to say, and it wouldn't be wrong to say, you know what, I gave that a go. You know what I mean? That was especially if it was like a second career. Hey, A for effort. That didn't work out, and I'm not going back. You know what I mean? So for someone to
Yeah.
just pull up the bootstraps and go, no, let's do this. Let's make the best of this. Make new friends. Make new people. You know what I mean? And start that over again. I just love that. You talk about, you know what I mean? We briefly just touched on challenges. You talked about not necessarily having, you know, a different level of support, or that support looked a little bit different. But there was also a physical challenge, something that happened during your nursing school tenure. What was that, and how did you work through that?
So I actually, after I read this, I thought of a second one. I gotta tell, this will be a quick one, possibly.
Oh no, let's go. Let's
So
double. We get double answers for the
I
question.
mentioned my running.
Yeah.
One morning I was out running my dogs. I usually run in the dark, during when it's dark, and I have my headlamp and everything. And as I was coming around, one of my neighbors was coming up, not wearing a headlamp. Please, if you're running in the dark, wear a headlamp for your safety and everybody else's. But our dogs like essentially like collided into one another. And so I went to pull my dog's away and I fell and I looked and I'm like, oh, look, there's a bush. Not thinking there was also a huge rock in that bush. And I like smashed my face into it. Um,
Oh.
and it was one of those things. I was actually going to I usually taught a class before I went to school. And I'm like putting band-aids on it and I'm driving in and I feel the blood running down like through my bandages and I was like, oh, this is probably not good. So I like made a little beeline to the emergency room and ended up like I had to get stitches and all kinds of stuff. Well,
Oh.
but as I'm driving into emergent to the emergency room, I'm looking at the clock and I'm like, it's shift change. Like this are the things like when you're once you know like shift
Uh-huh.
change are like this is the worst time to be coming.
Uh-huh.
Also, as I walk in, I look, I'm like, it's also a clinical day. Oh, that's and one of them was one of my professors, and she's like, "Oh my gosh!" And then she looks at everybody. She goes, "Remember HIPAA, guys," to the other students. But I ended up getting a concussion and had a test scheduled
Oh.
the next day. And I was like, "Here's the deal. Like, I was always that person. I get distracted. So I was
Mhm.
always like sit up in the front of the room for tests, put my earplugs in. And I was like, this is a lot. Like, so I had messaged the professor said, hey, do you mind if I can go to like a room and just do this on my own? I know there's accommodations.
Mhm.
So amazing. She was like, you have a concussion. You are not taking this test. She's like, that is a terrible idea. So,
Yeah.
Joni, just have to say I love Joni. But
Hmm.
yeah, so that was one little thing. This was literally the day before Halloween. I had like this face that so matched Halloween. So that was one little thing. That
Oh.
was just a small, but my actually, and this is right when I met you as
Mhm.
a tech. I was on my way heading into school on the freeway and I got rear-ended. And yeah, so I was actually so mad because I was like, I'm gonna miss class. And
Mhm.
as I'm waiting for the police to come, I'm like messaging my instructor of like, oh, I got hit and everything. And it was one of those things where kind of like, it wasn't that like my car is a little messed up. I can feel a little whiplash. I didn't think much of it other than I'm just gonna be sore. So they were like, I think your car is still drivable. It was really not. I should not have driven it. But I thought, I
Oh.
was like, I'm gonna go to school. I like show up and my professors were like, what are you doing here? But I was like,
Yeah.
I can't miss class. Um, anyways, long story short, it turned out I'm having some things in my back are
Hmm.
completely out of place of where they should be. This is almost a year and a half later, and I'm still dealing with chronic pain. My lovely physician that I'm working with has been trying many, many things. I've gone through a lot of procedures that have not been successful.
Oh no.
So I've just had this pain for over a year and a half that's really hard. And
Yeah.
I have a heart out for people of chronic pain now because it sucks. And I don't want to take things for it other than like I'll do muscle relaxers, but I can see how people get addicted to pain medications because it stings to be in pain all the time. And
Yeah.
so it made sitting really hard in class. I was that person who had to like get up and move around because it was really painful. So that made school hard. It made clinicals hard. It makes my job hard right now. So that's been my, yeah. my
Oh,
biggest thing that
Katrina.
was really challenging. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so sorry because yeah, that's I mean, I I don't even know where to go with that because you know what I mean? Like for me, obviously, like car accidents are a very intimate thing for me and what that has cost us in our life. I've talked about that on the podcast before. And it's like, I feel like it's just one of the number one dangers. You know, we take it for granted every day, but like we were telling our kids when they were growing, you know, my son in particular, maybe I shouldn't have told him, but we were talking about like, you know, you have other people's lives in your hands. You know what I mean? You're driving a 2-ton metal box. You know what I mean? And very bad things can happen. And not trying to scare you, but trying to scare you enough so that you respect it and don't lose that respect, because we all can take that for granted. And so, circling it back around to you though, like, I mean, how do you manage through that chronic pain? While avoiding the traps of, you know what I mean, potentially getting addicted to pain medications. Are there other things that help? Are there other options that you have to try moving forward?
I mean, like I said, I do muscle relaxers,
Mm-hmm.
and then I do like creams and things like that. I'll do. I was actually that person who took ibuprofen right after and was like, ended up in urgent care, not using my nurse brain of like, oh, I ended up having so much ibuprofen that it was giving me heartburn, thinking that it was something else. I guess
Oh,
they're doing the test. I was like, oh, I'm an idiot. I know this. I know this. But when you're just like things hurt. So I
yeah,
have to be careful with that. So I mean, I'm just kind of dealing with it. I mean, I have a fairly high pain tolerance, but it's not fun.
yeah,
I'm trying another procedure here in a couple of weeks, hoping that helps. But that's it honestly, which it might shift. I mean, I'll say the wonderful thing about nursing is there's lots of different opportunities,
yep,
but I'm sad knowing that if I can't solve this, I might have to do different things than
yeah,
what my original plan was because um, the shifts that I'm working, it's really hard to get through them, and
yeah.
so I might have to shift to something differently.
Hmm. Well, let's,
Yeah.
we'll cross that bridge if we have to when we get there, but that does bring to the natural topic.
Mhm.
Now you've got your license, you just graduated end of last year.
It's
How does that feel, by the way, being 4 months newly graduated?
It feels really good. It's good.
Yeah.
Once you get past those, like, you walk, you graduate, and then you pass the NCLEX, which I've heard many different stories on that. It sucks. I cried, but I passed. That was one of the things I had left, and I told my husband, I'm like, I failed. And he's like, well, you can retake it. I'm like, I can't retake it for 45 days. That's like all those things. And then you
Oh,
find out you
yeah,
pass. But yeah,
yeah.
and then, yeah, so I'm actually, the floor I'm on, I mentioned a little bit, I was a nurse tech. I had many, many good experiences in that. But for me personally, and I know everyone has different perspectives on this, but I felt that I wanted to start on a med surge floor, just for my own. I felt like that would give me the base that I could do anything else, because I'm kind of a squirrel and I like to do lots of different things. I felt like that base would be good for me because then I could, in the future, if I wanted, spread my wings.
Hmm.
So I I picked a floor where I loved what so I work at Sacred Heart here in Spokane. I'm on the It's a very long title. So we do orthopedic, trauma, plastics, ENT, and they've just added urology. So
Oh,
we do a
wow.
lot of things. So it's varied, which is challenging because I mean you can have something that you've never seen before because there's so many. That's such a broad range of things, but I also love
Hmm.
that it really challenges my brain. But I also, the staff, I just felt a connection with them. And I will say, I felt in every nurse tech position I had, I was like always pleasantly surprised on how great the staff were. But I just felt like what the floor offered as far as my skills, the skills I needed, and the staff. So I actually got my practicum there. I requested it, had that, and then got hired. And I love it. I am on night shift, as pretty much all new nurses have to do. That's hard for me. I don't know if it would have felt different in my 20s, but this old body who is like very much. I'm like the opposite. I love waking up. Like I will wake up at 3 or 4 a.m. just naturally. So the night
Yeah.
shift is rough. It's really rough.
Yeah.
But I love what I do. I love the variety.
That's awesome. And I mean, like, obviously, you're talking about, well, we might have to adjust plans. We might have to do this. We might have to do that. But I know you wanted to touch on future plans. What potential future plans do you have in store for you?
Yeah, so regardless of if I can stay on my floor or not based on my
Hmm.
body, again, I love being, I don't like settling ever, and I don't think there's anything wrong for people that are okay with that. But there's this thing, the hospitals like give you a certain amount of money for education every year. And in
Hmm.
my mind, I'm like, I don't want to just leave that on the table. So
Hmm.
I want to chip away at my master's. Which actually, when I first decided to go to school, there are some programs where if you have your bachelor's already, you can do your master, you can get your master's.
Hmm.
WCU was not one of them. So, like in my head, I thought that was an option, but it isn't at this time. They're hoping to do that in the near future.
Yeah.
So I just figured I'm going to chip away at that. I have decided, and it's going to take me at least a couple years because I'm going to go the nurse practitioner route,
Nice.
just so I have a fallback if I need to. Um, Originally, for the master's in my previous career, I did a lot of education. And
Hmm.
so I have a heart for education. And I figure, like, obviously not now. I don't have enough knowledge to educate anybody other than a patient. But I hope that by the time I'm done, I have the option to be an educator and possibly a nurse practitioner if that's where I need to go for my body.
Incredible. Well, I mean, your future's bright regardless of what happens with that one thing that is, what I mean, causing so much problems. And I will definitely be keeping you in my prayers in that regard. So
Thank you.
before we close in our traditional manner, was there any other subject that we didn't touch on that you definitely wanted to communicate?
I think we covered a lot of it. I mean, we could talk all day, you and I, but I think we're good.
we covered a lot of it and then some. We're very good at
Yes, yes.
that. Awesome. Well, then, with the traditional closing questions, of course, we're circling back to the three words you chose. What were they and why did you pick them?
I'll say humbling because I mentioned like I feel like I've always been a pretty good student. And the first pharmacology test I took, I got a D. And it was one where we could take it at home. And I just remember hitting the button, seeing that score, and crying, and immediately
Oh,
getting on, sending an email to the professor saying, "Hey, can we meet? I need to talk with you about this because see, how can I do better?" And she laughed. It's actually funny because I actually went to high school with her, and she's like,
oh,
"Oh, you are." She's like, "You're above the average." And so I just had to reframe my thinking. I did
yeah,
end up, doing better down the road as I learned different test taking strategies when it came to nursing. But that was, yeah, I was like, I've never gotten a D on a test. So that was really hard. Humbling
yeah,
there.
yeah.
Um, Empowering because it's, I think, first off, because I didn't think I could do nursing back in my 20s. And so I think the fact that it's now something that's like, I'm a nurse. It feels pretty awesome to say that and know that that I've made it. And also, it just opens up opportunities, I think, in life. And whether it's like for me, I know that if I have to change paths and go a little different, I have so many options. It's not the end of a career if my body doesn't let me do something. I can have so many different avenues. And to me, that's empowering because there are careers
Hmm.
where people, if they got hurt, they'd be done. And I just
Yeah.
think it's wonderful that we can do that. Or if it's maybe it's not even my body, maybe it's just like, I mean, you changed to a different focus. And I think
Hmm.
that's wonderful. And I wish more nurses thought about that because I think we've all been on a floor and you're just like, this is a fantastic nurse, but they are done with this
Yeah.
particular area. So I think it's empowering to know that we do have different options.
Hmm.
Um, Exhausting, as we talked about. And it's on me. I put a lot on my plate. That's a choice that I've made. So it was hard between school, my family, my 3 jobs that I had during school.
Mm-hmm.
I did not get enough sleep. So again, partly me, partly just, it takes a lot. There's a lot of studying and things that go into nursing school. And yeah, I think that's my 3.
That's incredible. Thank you. Thank you. I love those words and I love the reasons why you picked them. And now you have one piece of advice that you want everyone who's listening to take away with them for the rest of time. No pressure. What is that one piece of advice that you want to impart?
Well, mine's going to be focused on nursing school, and I just think use your resources. I like it really started like that first. I mentioned me getting that D, and I reached out to professor. That's not something I would have done previously, and I think that's probably why I had a harder time succeeding with my first degree, where I had to kind of hop around a few different times to different schools to figure out what I needed. And I've told my kids this as they, get into the college, like there are resources, there are people that want to help you.
Yeah.
The career counselor at WSU, she's now since retired. She was amazing. Even if I just needed to like spew and just get stuff off my chest, like it's okay. There are people that want to help you, but they can't help you if you don't ask for help.
Mm.
And I think that that's huge. And sometimes it's your peers, and sometimes it's professors, sometimes it's the counselors, the writing center, whatever it is. Like ask for help. They will help you. They want to support you. There's a lot of different things that you might not even be aware of that are available to you as resources.
Incredible. Incredible advice and definitely needed, especially when you're going through the rigors of nursing school. So, Katrina, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking, gosh, it's been almost an hour and a half now of our time together, just talking nursing, talking life. And I know that I'm encouraged. I'm walking away encouraged, which is always my litmus test. That means I know someone out there is encouraged listening to your story and what you've been through and going through. So, like I said, I'm going to keep you in my prayers. But, man, you are a warrior. You're inspiring. And I'm just excited to see where the future takes you.
Thank you very much.
Here's what's happening on the next episode of Feeding Our Young.
My superpower is a combo of organization and planning. I love to organize and plan. I don't get to use my superpower as much at home as I would like to because my 4 kids and husband aren't as quite, receptive to me organizing and planning all of their lives. But I still get to use it very much in my role as a nursing professional development specialist, a nurse educator, and I take a lot of pride. It doesn't always work out, and that has had to develop over time. I used to get frustrated when my organization and my planning didn't go exactly as I wanted it to, when it didn't work out. But now I really enjoy the process, and I think it's more of a superpower that I can just enjoy the process and not get as frustrated with the outcome.
Did you like today's episode of Feeding Our Young? Want to know more about the Feeding Our Young movement? Check out our website at feedingouryoung.org. Would you like to be featured on a future episode? Maybe have Eric bring his unique brand of encouragement to your nursing students or nurses? Please text us at 509-666-5636 or email us at info@feedingouryoung.org. We're so excited to have you return to hear our next honored guest. Be sure to follow us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Feeding Our Young LLC. Again, that's username Feeding Our Young LLC. Until next time, be encouraged and go find someone to encourage today.